Hey there, Drowsy Historian here. Tonight you are not drifting off beneath a tattered tent in a battlefield infirmary. You're not waiting for your number in a Victorian charity queue or watching for bandits from a stagecoach window. No, tonight you are perfectly still. Not by choice, not for comfort, but because your body will not move and has not moved in years. Tonight, you're stepping inside the quiet humming world of the iron lung, and once you're in, you do not leave. So before we begin this long, unmoving life of corridors, reflections, and decades spent listening to a machine breathe in your place, do me one small favour. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is there. If you prefer these stories without ads, you can join the Patreon. It's linked in the description. And if you listen to these stories in bed, consider using a pair of wireless sleep earbuds for enhanced immersion. They're comfortable, discreet, and made for side sleepers. I've linked my favourite pair in the description. Now, lie back, get comfortable. Let's begin. You're 10 years old and the summer is almost over. The light through your bedroom window has that late August stillness to it. The kind that makes the shadows fall longer than they should. Your shoes are by the door, dusty and half untied, still marked with the chalky scuffs from yesterday's sidewalk games. Somewhere outside, a lawnmower drones, distant and rhythmic. You don't want to get up yet, but something feels off. Not in the world, in you. It starts as a stiffness at the base of your neck. You stretch, try to shake it off, but the ache travels down your spine, into your lower back, where it settles with the heavy, silent persistence of a bad mood. You call for your mother. She comes in, presses a cool hand to your forehead, and tells you it's probably a chill from the fan. She gives you a spoonful of something sweet and sticky, and tells you to rest. You don't argue. You don't have the energy. By mid-morning, the ache has become something worse. Less pain, more a kind of pressure. It's as if your bones are too thick for your body now. When you swing your legs off the bed, they feel like someone else's. You try to stand and they tremble beneath you, uncooperative and slow. You sit back down, embarrassed. You're not the sort of child who pretends to be ill. You want to go to school. You want to get back to the playground, where the cement is hot and your name is still half visible in pink chalk. Your mother brings you toast. You pick at it, then lie back again. The ceiling fan clicks as it turns and your thoughts drift in and out of the white noise. Around lunchtime, your father returns home unexpectedly. You hear them talking in low tones. Your name is mentioned. He doesn't come in. The doctor arrives around 2, a man who smells faintly of cigarettes and starch. He listens to your chest, feels your neck, and asks you to raise your arm. You try. It responds, but sluggishly. He writes something down. When your mother asks, "Is it polio?" he doesn't answer right away. He says it could be something viral, but they'll take you in just in case. It's probably nothing, he assures. He touches your shoulder before he leaves. You feel the weight of that touch more than the comfort. At the hospital, the smell is stronger, antiseptic and humidity trapped behind brick walls. They don't let your parents follow you past the lobby. A nurse in a blue dress with a paper mask leads you down a corridor. She holds your hand, but not tightly. You ask if your parents can come. She says they'll be just outside. You pass other children on gurneys, some sleeping, some crying. The windows are too high to see out of. The bed they put you on is thin and stiff, covered in waxy paper that crackles every time you move. The sheets smell faintly of bleach. A second nurse appears, this one with grey hair and a clipboard. She checks your name, then your temperature, then your reflexes. The fever climbs through the afternoon. Your clothes are damp by evening, your skin hot and cold in turns. You drift in and out of sleep, waking to the sound of wheels on tile, clinking metal trays, the occasional short burst of a child sobbing down the hall. You start to hear your name spoken in passing, always by strangers, always just out of view. At one point, you try to sit up and realise your legs won't follow the command. It's not pain, It's absence. You reach down, dig your fingers into your thighs. You feel pressure, but no clear outline of control. When you tell the nurse, she nods. She makes a note on the chart and offers you water. Later, in the half-dark, a man in a white coat leans over your bed and asks if you can take a deep breath. You try, you do not succeed. It feels like blowing air through a clogged straw. He nods as if he expected that answer. You hear the word paralysis in a voice that isn't talking to you. The night is long. You doze, then wake with a jolt. The feeling of breath catching halfway up your chest. A nurse is already beside you. She puts something under your tongue, speaks in a soft, even voice. You ask again where your mother is. She says she'll try to find out, but she doesn't leave. At some point, your vision starts to shimmer at the edges. The air growing thicker, more like water. You try to shift on the bed, but your body refuses to move. Not just your legs now, your back, your stomach, your chest. You can still speak, but only in short gasps. Someone places a cold mask over your mouth. It smells of rubber and metal. You breathe in. The air stings, sharp and thin. You cough, and someone nearby winces. They bring in a rolling machine with dials and hoses. It sits beside your bed like an oversized insect, humming quietly, waiting. You don't understand what it does, but everyone treats it like a priest. The nurse asks you to stay calm. You ask again for your mother. This time, she says nothing. You try to stay awake, but your body is sinking, heavier by the hour. You feel small, shrunk down inside yourself, like your thoughts no longer fit the shape they came in. You try to count something. Steps maybe, or ceiling tiles. You lose track. When you open your eyes next, you can no longer lift your head. A final doctor appears. His voice is calm, measured. He looks like he hasn't slept in days. He tells someone to prepare the machine. You don't catch all of it. There's too much noise now. Footsteps, squeaking wheels, distant crying. You close your eyes against the fluorescent glare. In the background, you hear someone. Maybe a nurse, maybe not. Say it clearly this time. It might be Polio, and you stop hearing anything else. You don't remember being moved. You must have passed out somewhere, between the chart being updated and the machine being wheeled closer to your bed. When your eyes open again, you're not in the same room. This one is colder, brighter. The walls are bare, tiled in squares that reflect too much of the overhead light. There's a sour, metallic scent in the air. Behind it, a cleaner tang that doesn't quite cover the first. Your neck is slick with sweat. Everything below your collarbone feels far away. They've stripped you down to a hospital gown. Someone has folded your clothes and set them on a tray that's already being wheeled away. You want to ask where they're going or whether your mother called, but the words come out fragmented. The nurse beside you places a hand lightly on your forehead and says, "Don't speak, sweetheart." Her voice is soft, distracted. She's not really talking to you. She's talking through the motions. Another nurse enters, older, reading from a clipboard. She says the words iron lung and negative pressure and thoracic paralysis as though she said them every day for years. Perhaps she has. She explains the procedure, mostly for the benefit of the others in the room, or maybe herself. You are not the audience. You are the subject. She says it will feel strange at first. Most patients panic. She says it like a weather forecast. A man in green scrubs adjusts the machine beside you. It's not what you expected. It looks less like a lung and more like a steel barrel laid on its side. It has hinges and latches, like a shipping crate. There's a small window on the side and a circular collar at one end. The collar, you realize, is for your neck. Your body will go inside. Your head will remain out. A nurse confirms this aloud, as if in answer to your thoughts. The machine hisses softly. The sound is constant, mechanical, almost polite, but when the top half is lifted open, it groans like something alive. You stare at the padded tray that runs through its centre. It looks like the sort of surface you'd expect to see in a morgue. 2 attendants stand at either side of you, one at the shoulders, one near your hips. They work without speaking. They lift you in a practiced rhythm and slide your body into the machine, like a letter into an envelope. The interior of the cylinder is lined with worn padding. You feel it under your elbows, your spine, your calves. It's cold at first, the kind of cold that seems to rise from metal rather than air. As your head clears the collar at the opening, the nurse adjusts it snugly around your neck. You can still speak, you can still see the overhead light, but everything else, your arms, your chest, your legs, has been sealed inside. You're still trying to understand the shape of the machine around you when the vacuum starts. There's no warning. One moment you're lying still, and the next, your entire torso is expanding. Not because you've told it to, but because something else has told it for you. You breathe in sharply, or rather, the machine breathes in on your behalf. Your chest rises with the force of it, then collapses back down as the pressure shifts again. It's not pain exactly, it's pressure, rhythm, inevitability. The air leaves your lungs whether you want it to or not. The nurse watches you closely. She's seen this before. Your hands twitch, but not from movement, from panic. You try to lift your arms, but they're somewhere far below the edge of your awareness. You try to shout, only half a sound escapes. The machine breathes in. Your ribs follow. The machine breathes out. Your ribs fall. This is not breathing the way you remember it. This is breathing from the outside in. You are no longer responsible for your own life. A box of metal and wires is doing the remembering for you. Each inhale feels like someone pressing on your spine. Each exhale leaves you lighter, emptier, more distant from yourself. Your heart is pounding, though your body cannot show it. You feel the heat rise in your throat, your face flushing with adrenaline, your mind surging towards something it cannot quite name, a primal, voiceless panic that no amount of polite explanation can settle. You are being breathed for. You are no longer the one in charge. You don't mean to cry, but tears rise anyway. One slips down your temple and into your hairline. The nurse wipes it away without comment. She places a folded towel beneath your neck to keep you steady. Another nurse says your vitals are holding. A third adjusts the latch on the lung. It clicks into place with the sound of something final. You ask again for your mother. This time, the nurse says she'll check, but she doesn't move. She places a hand on your head again. Not affectionately, but to stabilize you. The rest of the staff begin to file out. The hiss of the machine grows louder now that there are fewer voices to cover it. You hear every piston stroke, every shift in pressure. You try to hold your breath to resist it, just once, but the vacuum overpowers you. Your chest expands anyway. The light above your face flickers faintly, not from electricity, but from the movement of the nurses crossing the room. You cannot move your head far enough to see anything outside the beam. You try to count the seconds between breaths. It's difficult. The rhythm is strange, regular, but not quite natural. Your lungs fill with more air than they used to. Then they deflate fully. It's like being played by a distant hand. One of the nurses, the one with the clipboard, leans close again. She says it will take getting used to, that most patients sleep after a while. You try to tell her you don't want to. You don't want to sleep like this, half inside a coffin with only your eyes still moving. She nods gently, the way someone does when they're done listening. At some point, a cold cloth is draped across your forehead. It helps a little. The machine has settled into its rhythm now, a soft, sucking pulse that echoes in your ears and ribs alike. Inhale, pause, exhale, pause. Your vision grows hazy. You think of your house, of your pillow at home, of the last game you played before all of this. The chalk on the sidewalk was yellow. You remember that now. The heat of the pavement. The scrape on your knee. That was yesterday. The nurse dims the light above you. The machine breathes in. You breathe in. The machine breathes out. You begin to drift, the edges of your thoughts blurring like the window beside your bed back home. On foggy mornings. You do not know how long this will last. No one has told you. No one knows. The machine breathes in again. You wake to the sound of the machine. Not a sudden jarring noise, more like a continuation. A soft, persistent hiss on the inhale, followed by a low sigh on the exhale. You blink slowly, and the ceiling above you comes into focus, off-white, cracked faintly in the corner, humming with fluorescent light. You try to move your arm, your leg, anything. Nothing answers. Only your eyes and your jaw offer any cooperation, and even those are slow to respond. You are still inside the iron lung. You are still being breathed for. A nurse enters, checking the dials. She greets you by your first name, but without warmth. Her voice is soft, practiced. She asks how you slept, though she doesn't seem to expect an answer. She wipes your forehead with a cool cloth and records something on a chart at the foot of your machine. You want to ask what time it is. You want to ask what day it is. Instead, you ask if your mother came. The nurse hesitates, then says she'll check, but you know she won't. They feed you, liquids mostly, and soft foods that don't require chewing. A spoon enters your field of view, tilts toward your mouth, disappears. You are cleaned, rotated slightly on schedule, your sheets changed by gloved hands that move efficiently. They speak in quiet tones as they do it, mostly to each other. You're addressed sometimes, but it's not conversation, it's notification. You'll feel some pressure now, or just a little cold while I adjust this. No one says, "How are you doing?" Not like they mean it. By the second or third day, you begin to recognize voices. The morning nurse with the high, breathy tone. The evening one who hums under her breath while taking your temperature. A tall man who pushes the food carts and always coughs into his sleeve. The older nurse who smells faintly of rose water and never touches your skin unless absolutely necessary. They become your calendar, their presence, your clock. The light through the windows changes, but only barely reaches your side of the room. You start to track it, the angle in the late morning when it hits the wall across from you, the fading shadows by the late afternoon. At night, the overhead lights are dimmed, never off. The hallway beyond the half-closed door stays bright, its yellow-tinted glare leaking into your peripheral vision. The machine does not sleep. Neither do you, not really. Time ceases to be something you measure by hours. It becomes a matter of sequences. The nurse comes, then food arrives, then vitals, then cleaning, then something cold rubbed across your neck, then a whisper, then the machine. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Each breath is accounted for by something you did not ask for. A mirror is clipped beside your head one morning. The nurse tells you it's to help you see around the room. She adjusts the angle for you. At first, it seems kind, a small concession. Then you realize the mirror reflects almost nothing, just your own face, pale and motionless, your hair thinning where it presses into the cloth behind your skull. You stare at yourself for what might be hours. Sometimes, you forget to blink. Other patients are wheeled in and out of the room. You don't see them, but you hear their machines. That same rhythmic breathing, slower or faster than yours, depending on the body inside. Some have names you learn through eavesdropping. Others never stay long enough to be noticed. You hear someone down the row cry for their mother all night. The next day, that voice is gone. The machine next to yours goes quiet for a while. A new one replaces it the next afternoon. You're told you're stable. That's the word they use. He's stable. You don't know if that's good or bad. It sounds like a thing kept in storage. They adjust your medication, monitor your vitals, and mention your name when they speak to each other, but rarely to you. You begin to suspect you're easier to care for when silent. The days pass more easily that way, for them and for you. Sometimes when the lights are low and the machines sync in rhythm, you feel a twitch, a ghost of movement in your foot or your hand. It's always gone by the time you try to chase it. You tell the nurse once. She says it might be a nerve reflex. She sounds hopeful, or maybe just polite. You stop mentioning it after that. Your dreams change. At first, they are vivid, running through fields behind your house, playing kickball with your brother, jumping from a rope swing into the lake. The kind of dreams that leave you breathless when you wake. Later, the dreams become stranger. In them, your body floats weightless, unbound by the machine. You do not breathe, you do not need to. Sometimes you wake in the middle of one and feel more disappointed than frightened. They read letters to you, mostly from your mother. Sometimes your father signs his name at the bottom. She writes about the weather, your sister's grades, how the dog is still waiting by the porch for you to come home. She asks if you've been good, if the nurses are kind. You ask to hear those lines again and again. The nurse obliges until one day she says, "There's no letter today." After that, they come less frequently. The first time your parents visit, they're standing behind a window. Your mother's hand is pressed to the glass. She smiles and her mouth trembles. Your father waves. You try to speak, but they can't hear you. A nurse adjusts your collar and tells them you're doing well, that you're improving, that you're very brave. The window fogs slightly from your breath. When they leave, you cry without making sound. The next time they visit, they're allowed in. Your mother holds your hand for a few minutes. Your father talks to the doctor in the hallway. You ask if you're going home soon. Your mother doesn't answer directly. She says they're making sure you're very safe here, that the machine is helping, that everyone is doing their best. You try to believe her. After that, the visits become shorter. They say your sister has school, that your father's job is keeping him busy, that it's a long drive into town. You keep asking when they're coming next. The nurses don't know, or they do, and they don't want to say. The mirror becomes your main company. You learn every line of your own face. You practice moving your mouth without speaking. You mouth old songs, old jokes, old arguments. Sometimes you pretend you're back home, and that this is a dream. That when you blink again, the walls will be wallpapered. The air will smell like dust and summer grass, and the dog will bark from somewhere down the hall. But when you open your eyes, it's always the same. Pale tile, low light, the hiss of a machine that never stops. You begin to count things. The number of steps you think a nurse takes from the door to your bedside, the number of tiles on the ceiling, the seconds between meals. You try to guess what day it is by the taste of the soup. Sometimes you get it right. Eventually, the nurses stop introducing themselves. They assume you know their names. They don't ask if you're comfortable. They assume you'll say so if you're not. You begin to notice which ones take longer with the cloth beneath your neck, which ones are more gentle when adjusting the collar, which ones don't speak at all. Weeks pass. You're told this is a good sign, stability again. But the word doesn't comfort you anymore. It feels like a label, a shelf. You're not improving, not declining. You're simply there, a patient, a fixture, a task on a chart with a time beside it. The routine becomes numbing. Morning is not morning. Night is not night. Time is only a pattern of repetition. The machine breathes. The nurse enters. The food arrives. The letters don't. You forget what it felt like to sit upright, to feel your weight shift on your own. You forget what it meant to move. One morning, the routine shifts. It's not a decision you're part of. The nurse who usually checks your vitals brings 2 orderlies with her. They tell you it's time to move. They say the main ward has space now. You wonder if your parents know they're moving you. You try to ask, but the nurse just tells you to relax. The machine is unplugged gently. Your breath pauses, held in the momentary gap between power and backup. You feel the lurch in your chest as they transition to the portable pump. Less efficient, more rattling. A wheeled platform is locked under your machine, and you are rolled slowly out of the room that has become your world. The hallway is brighter than you remember. You pass doors you've never seen opened. Nurses walk past without looking. One stops to hold the elevator while your machine is guided inside. Barely clearing the walls, you hear someone joking about needing wider doors. You try to laugh, but it catches in your throat. You breathe in. The machine breathes with you. The new room is long, longer than any space you've been in since arriving. Not a private room, but a shared one. Rows of identical iron lungs, their metallic curves glinting under dull overhead lights. A mechanical symphony of inhaling and exhaling surrounds you, each cylinder singing its own slow, mournful rhythm. The machines aren't quite in sync. The sound is offset by seconds, a wave of breath and silence that repeats across the room like a mechanical tide. You're wheeled to the far end, near a wall with a narrow window. The nurse checks your machine's alignment, then plugs it back into the wall unit. The vacuum hum returns, your rhythm restored. You inhale deeply, involuntarily. Your chest rises, then falls. The lights above flicker slightly. You hear murmurs, clipped conversation, wheels turning, shoes squeaking. You are now one of many. The first thing you notice is how still everyone is. Only heads are visible. Every body is hidden, locked in its own barrel. You catch a glimpse of a girl, maybe 12, her hair braided carefully, her mouth slack. Her eyes flick toward you, then away. Another boy stares straight up at the ceiling, blinking steadily, as if timing each breath with the overhead flicker. Further down, someone murmurs to himself, a quiet, broken monologue no one seems to hear. A nurse clips a mirror to your machine, not the small one from before, but a wide rectangular one, polished on one side, scuffed on the other. She adjusts the angle until you can see part of the room. You catch a glimpse of yourself again, pale, eyes sunken slightly, hair pressed to your scalp. But now, behind your reflection, you see rows of other faces, all hovering above steel, suspended in this strange, breathing rhythm of enforced survival. The light never fully dims. At night, they lower it to a soft glow, but the machines don't stop. They breathe in the dark, louder now, the silence of sleep broken by their artificial pulse. You try to close your eyes, but it's difficult. Every breath is an event. You hear the gurgle of someone being suctioned 2 machines down. You hear a nurse's shoes approach, pause, then move away. You hear someone crying, quietly, through clenched teeth. You lose track of how many others there are. 12, maybe 15. Some are awake often, others barely stir. A few try to talk when nurses pass, but the words come out thick and slow. You hear one voice that sounds almost cheerful. A girl who asks questions no one answers. Another voice, older, raspier, mutters prayers at regular intervals, sometimes in Latin. You try to speak to the boy beside you once, ask his name. He blinks at you, then turns his eyes away. No one is rude here. They are just tired. Nurses come and go faster now. The ratio has shifted. The tone is brisker, less personal. You are fed at a scheduled time, washed on rotation, spoken to only when something needs adjusting. You begin to know the order of things, which nurse brings the trays, which one carries the clipboard, which one sighs audibly when the suction pump is required. You recognise footsteps now before you see faces. Your name is said less frequently. You learn the sounds of other machines. A low wheeze from the left means the girl's diaphragm is straining. A clicking from 2 rows over signals a cracked gasket. You hear when someone has a chest infection, a wet cough that lingers long after the nurse has left. You can tell who's been given new medication by the sluggishness of their breathing. You can tell who's in pain by the pitch of their voice, even when they don't say so. Sometimes you hallucinate movement. You feel a toe twitch, a finger curl. You ask a nurse to check once and she tells you gently that it was probably just a nerve signal. You try to believe her. Other times you dream of walking. You run in dreams, down sidewalks you remember, over grass fields that stretch past the edge of memory. But when you wake, you are always still. You blink once, twice, and the mirror shows you only yourself. Occasionally, they draw a curtain around a machine. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, the room becomes quieter than usual. Nurses move faster. The suction pump runs longer. Then the machine falls silent. You hear a latch click. You hear wheels move. A stretcher passes quietly out of view. The curtain remains up for a while after that. Then one day, it's gone, and the bed is empty. A few days later, a new patient arrives. You learn not to ask about them. The first time it happens, you ask a nurse what became of the girl with the pink blanket. She just shakes her head. Once, then moves to check your vitals. The second time, you don't ask. A calendar is taped to the far wall, though it's hard to read from your angle. You hear the nurses mention dates, flu season, holidays, payday. You mark time in other ways. The thinning of your hair, the dull ache in your jaw from weeks of chewing soft food, the way your voice changes from disuse. You speak less now. Fewer people listen. The mirror becomes more familiar than the people around you. You spend hours staring into it, not because you want to, but because there's nowhere else to look. You study your face, the fine lines at the corners of your eyes, the dry skin on your forehead, the slight asymmetry of your mouth. You begin to notice the faces behind yours too, reflected at strange angles. Other mirrors clipped to other machines. You're a collection of glances and silences, a chorus of eyes floating in metal coffins. One night, something shifts. It's a quiet night, the machines humming, the lights dimmed, the hallway mostly still. You're half asleep, caught in the blurred state between dreams and the mechanical rhythm of breath. Then you hear something. Not a noise exactly, but the absence of one. A machine down the row has stopped. No inhale, no exhale, just silence. A curtain is drawn. You can't see who it is. You hear soft steps, a murmur, the squeak of rubber wheels. The suction pump doesn't run this time. There's no rush, no alarm. Just a quiet, practiced removal. A nurse walks past your field of view holding a clipboard and doesn't look down. You close your eyes not because you're tired, but because it's easier than watching the space be made ready again. You don't know the exact day until a nurse tells you. She says it with an awkward smile, carrying a clipboard and a tray of morning pills. "Happy birthday," she offers, like a question. You blink at her, trying to remember what month it is. She checks her watch, hesitates, and adds, 11, right? You nod slowly. The confirmation makes it real. You're 11 years old. You have been inside the machine for nearly a year. The nurse tapes a paper card to the side of your lung. It features a cartoon animal, a bear maybe, smiling far too widely. The message is generic. She doesn't mention who it's from, and you don't ask. The corners curl within a few hours. You watch it shift slightly in the air current from the overhead fan, its cheeriness wobbling in and out of view. You don't have the strength to feel disappointed, but you do feel tired. Around you, the ward continues like any other day. Machines hum, nurses walk briskly, trays rattle, voices rise and fall. You track the angles of the light, as usual. No one else mentions your birthday until late afternoon, when a different nurse brings in a cupcake with a single candle already lit. She places it on a tray just beside your head, careful not to block your breathing collar. She tells you to make a wish. You try. The candle sputters as the machine exhales. You can't blow anymore. Your mother visits in the early evening. She enters the ward carefully, as if unsure she's allowed to be here at all. Her shoes echo softly on the tile. She has curled her hair and is wearing a dress you think she wore once to church. She smiles when she sees you, but it doesn't last. Her eyes fill too quickly, and she turns her head, pretending to look at the window. You try to smile at her. It takes effort now. Your facial muscles don't behave the way they used to. The corners of your mouth twitch, hold briefly, then fall. She pretends not to notice. She touches your forehead, brushing your hair back with slow fingers. She says you look so grown up, that she can't believe it's been a whole year. You don't ask why your father didn't come. You already know what she'll say, that he's working late, or couldn't get away, or didn't want to get in the nurse's way. She brings a small gift, a book with a cloth cover, and your name written inside in her handwriting. She holds it up, shows you the cover, then sets it gently on your tray. You cannot hold it. You cannot turn the pages. She doesn't offer to read it. She just says, "It's here if you want it," as if you'll pick it up later when you have time. The visit doesn't last long. She says she has to get back before dark, that your sister has school in the morning, that they'll come again soon. You believe her, but only the way you believe the nurses when they say, "Just a little pinch," or "This won't take long." You watch her walk away, her steps quickening near the door. She doesn't look back. When she's gone, you stare at the book until the light fades. A nurse picks it up to wipe down the tray and sets it aside without comment. The confetti comes later. A nurse with too much energy and a paper bag of decorations taped to the nurse's station wall. She scatters some across the ward, laughing quietly to herself, humming a birthday tune off key. Most patients ignore her. One of the older girls mutters something unkind under her breath. The confetti lands in your hair and sticks to your skin. You try to move your head enough to shake it off, but it doesn't work. A few pieces fall onto your mirror, distorting your reflection. A bright yellow star across one eye. A crescent moon pressed against your chin. You can't decide whether it makes you look festive or foolish. No one offers to clean it up. Dinner comes late. A tray with broth, mashed carrots, and a small square of white cake with blue icing. The nurse cuts a corner off and tries to feed it to you, but your jaw hurts from disuse and your throat is dry. You manage one swallow. It tastes of sugar and something else. Chemicals, maybe, or artificial cheer. You don't ask for another bite. The rest of the cake sits beside you until the tray is collected, uneaten, and soft at the edges. You've seen a few of the other patients receive birthday cards, taped to their machines, signed by family, sometimes read aloud by visiting siblings or cheerful nurses. One boy's parents brought balloons, tied them to the end of his bed, and sang softly until the nurse reminded them visiting hours were over. You listened without envy, just observation. You studied the colours, the sounds, the way the balloon string trembled with each breath from the machine. You wondered what your own voice would sound like if you tried to sing. You stare at the ceiling. One of the tiles has a stain now, shaped vaguely like a cloud. You trace its outline with your eyes again and again, creating patterns where none exist. You think of the birthdays before this one. Cake at the kitchen table, wrapping paper on the floor, your sister stealing the last candle, your mother laughing, the dog trying to lick frosting off your fingers. The memories don't hurt. They feel faded like someone else's childhood. No one says goodnight. They dim the lights at the usual time. The machines continue their rhythm, in, pause, out, pause, and the room settles into the steady hum of late evening. You can still feel the confetti on your scalp. You try to tilt your head, but your neck muscles are too weak to help. One piece falls onto your pillow. You watch it for several minutes until it blends into the background. Like everything else, you think about the candle, the one you couldn't blow out. It seemed to go out on its own, but part of you wonders if someone pinched it with their fingers when you closed your eyes. You never got to make a real wish. Or maybe you did, and it didn't matter. The card curls more at the edges overnight. The tape peels away just slightly, letting it droop until only one corner clings to the metal. You hope it falls by morning. You don't want to look at it again. The cartoon bear's eyes follow your reflection in the mirror. Or maybe that's just the angle. You close your eyes. The rhythm of the machine continues. A nurse adjusts the blanket draped across your shoulders and doesn't speak. You try to sleep, but the sweetness of the cake lingers on your tongue, thin and chemical, mixed with the sharp smell of antiseptic in the air. A few days after the birthday that wasn't, you notice a change in how the nurses speak when they approach. They say your name more often. They pause before giving updates. You catch pieces of unfamiliar vocabulary, terms that don't belong in the usual rotation of vital signs and feeding schedules. They don't say much directly to you, but they talk to each other in lower tones than usual, and the words you do hear feel heavier. Your mother appears again, this time with your father. He looks tired, more than tired actually. Hollow, He holds a folded newspaper that he never opens. They stand near the foot of your machine while a man in a white coat explains something. The doctor is young, serious, dressed too neatly. He looks like someone who doesn't work on the ward every day. You try to listen, but most of it washes past you in the usual stream of clinical distance. One word lands clearly: surgery. Your mother turns to you and smiles too quickly. Your father nods but says nothing. The doctor says it's not a cure. No one uses that word anymore, but a possible improvement. A spinal adjustment, or diaphragm pacing, or nerve stimulation. He lists them like menu options. The idea is to train your body to breathe again, or part of it. There's a chance, he says. A chance. He says it 3 times. That evening, a nurse comes by with a clipboard and asks if you understand what's going to happen. You nod. She doesn't explain further. She pats your hand, the one you can't feel, and tells you it will be over quickly. You don't know what over means in this context. Nothing has been over since the first day you couldn't stand up. The next morning, they prep you early. You're given a sponge bath by 2 nurses working in tandem, neither making eye contact. One trims your fingernails, while the other changes the dressing on the pressure sore beneath your shoulder blade. You can't see it, but you know it's there. You felt it burn during long nights when no one's adjusted your position in time. When the orderlies arrive to move you, the machine is unplugged again, and you feel that same now familiar stutter in your chest. The portable pump is rougher than before. It wheezes like it's struggling. You are wheeled down a different hallway this time, past rooms you don't recognise, then into a brightly lit space that smells like bleach and heat and anxiety. The walls are white, the ceiling too high, the noise sharp. They remove you from the machine entirely for a moment, just a moment, but it feels longer. You are weightless, but not in the good way. Your lungs flatten instantly. Your mouth opens, not in a scream, just in reflex. Air refuses to enter. It is like falling underwater. The lights flicker. A mask is pressed over your nose and mouth, but it's not enough. You can hear your pulse in your ears, fast and wild and useless. They strap you to a table. You can't move, so the straps are ceremonial. The doctor speaks to someone you can't see, calls for tools you don't recognise. He says something about nerves and electrodes and tension. You smell the burn of sterilised metal. Someone says, just a little longer. You don't remember what happens after that. When you wake, you're back inside the iron lung. Not your usual one. This one is newer, stiffer, unpainted. The collar feels wrong. It pinches your neck slightly. A nurse hovers near the dial, checking your rhythm. She notices you're awake and smiles, but not in a way that makes you feel better. She says, you did well, that you were brave. You wonder if she says that to everyone. The pain starts slowly. A deep ache through your spine, like a bruise being pressed from the inside. It spreads downward, wrapping your ribs like wires pulled too tight. Breathing, even this kind of breathing, becomes harder. You feel each inhale as a separate event. You try to ask for something, but the words dissolve in your throat. You manage hurts after a few tries. The nurse gives you a shot. You sleep again. The recovery is supposed to take weeks. That's what they say. You're supposed to build strength, gradually. You're supposed to relearn breath. That's the phrase. Relearn breath, like it's a subject you failed in school. The doctor visits twice over the next month. Each time he tests your diaphragm response. Each time he says, not yet. The third time, he stops saying anything at all. Your mother visits once during recovery. She brings soup from home, though you can't eat it. She reads from the book she gave you months ago. Her voice trembles by the 3rd chapter. She leaves before dinner. You hear her footsteps fade into the hallway. You think of calling after her, but don't. You don't want to see her lie again. The staff begin to refer to you as unchanged. That's the word they write on the chart. They say it in passing, as if it doesn't matter. Your pain fades eventually, but only because your body gives up trying to warn you. You feel numb, not in the literal way. That's been true for a while. but in the deeper, quieter way that seeps into the thoughts. You no longer finish. They move you back to the ward after a month. Your old spot has been filled. You're placed at the opposite end now, nearer the utility door. The rhythm of the machines is different here, more erratic. The patients are quieter. A new nurse clips a mirror to your collar. You see your reflection. You barely recognize the face. The eyes are yours. The rest is debatable. People ask fewer questions now. They ask if you're hungry, if you need more blankets. No one asks if you feel better. No one asks what it was like. Even you don't ask. The doctors say they'll reevaluate in 6 months. You stop counting. You stop hoping. You stop making room for anything new. They pretend to be hopeful. You pretend not to notice. Time drags on. In the mirror, your face no longer surprises you. You've studied it long enough to know where the shadows fall and which parts shift when you try to smile. You've memorized how your eyes droop in the afternoon and how the lines around your mouth are sharper than they were when you arrived. The mirror becomes a point of reference, your only moving landscape. It's not always comforting, but it's consistent. You begin to speak to it quietly when no one else is around. Not in full conversations, just phrases, fragments, things you'd say if someone were really there. You ask questions you don't expect answers to. You tell it when you're bored. You whisper jokes from memory just to see your lips move. You describe dreams to it, though the dreams themselves have started to blur together. Long sequences of floating or running or sinking. Sometimes you wake from them with tears in your hairline. At night, when the room dims and the machines take over the soundscape entirely, you retreat into memory. It's not a choice at first. The mind wanders, and there's nowhere else to go. You return to the lake where you swam as a child, the one with the slimy rocks underfoot, and the sun-warmed dock that burned your heels. You imagine the cool shock of the water against your skin, the way your body used to move without instruction. You can almost feel the ripples. You imagine your bicycle, the red one with the chipped handlebars and the squeaky back wheel. You think about the sound it made when you coasted downhill, the wind in your ears, the blurred edges of everything passing by. You think about the way your hands gripped the rubber handles, the way your legs worked in tandem with your lungs. It feels like someone else's memory now, but you tell yourself it was yours. You picture your dog, the old mutt who used to curl up on your blanket and twitch in his sleep. You remember his breath, warm and damp against your wrist. Sometimes you think you hear him now, padding softly through the ward, but it's always the night nurse's shoes or the wheeze of a distant machine. You try to keep the dog in your dreams. He never gets sick there. The days bleed together, and the mirror becomes a tool for shaping time. You pretend it's a window, then a screen, then a picture frame. You blink at it deliberately, trying to control how long you can hold your eyes open. You invent games, count the nurses with blue uniforms versus white, guess the hour based on the pitch of the machines around you, assign stories to the ceiling stains. You begin to hum softly, blinking to the rhythm. You compose songs you'll never hear aloud. No one questions your quiet. They're used to it now. A nurse mentions that you're a good patient, which you understand to mean easy. You don't cry or shout or ask too many things. You eat what you're given, respond when spoken to, and lie still through every routine. You have become background to their day, a familiar rhythm in their charting, a box to tick off before moving on to something louder. You try to picture the seasons outside, but it's hard to remember what the sky looks like when you haven't seen it in a year. The window across the ward shows only a strip of pale grey most days, and when the light shifts you can't tell if it's morning or afternoon. You remember the way autumn smelled, wet leaves, chimney smoke, the inside of your school books. You think of Halloween and try to recall what you dressed as last time. It escapes you. Occasionally, you hear talk of another surgery. Not for you, for someone else. The staff speak in hopeful tones again, and for a moment you feel something stir. Then it passes. You've heard that tone before. You know how it ends. You no longer believe in recovery, at least not for yourself. But you still let yourself imagine it sometimes. The feeling of breath in your own chest, not machine-delivered, but real. You let the fantasy hover for a while before pushing it back where it belongs. In your dreams, your hands move again. Sometimes they reach for a doorknob, or a branch, or the hem of your mother's coat. Other times, they ball into fists and strike something soft. The earth, a pillow, the air. You dream of running without direction, the sound of your own breathing rising in your ears. You wake with your mouth open, heart racing, and realize nothing has changed. The machine breathes. You do not. You start imagining the room differently. Some days it's a ship, and you're below deck in a storm, strapped to your bunk, waiting to make land. Other days it's a bunker, buried underground, sealed off from a world that ended without you. On particularly long days it becomes a theatre, and you're the only one who knows it's all pretend. The nurses become actors. The lights overhead are too deliberate to be accidental. The rhythm of the machines is a soundtrack for a film that never ends. You try to imagine each day as different, though they aren't. You assign names to the other patients, since no one says them aloud. You invent backstories for the boy beside you. He's a pilot in training, or a spy with a secret, or a prince in hiding. You wonder what stories they've made up about you. Probably none. One afternoon you ask the nurse what day it is. She hesitates, checks her chart, and tells you it's Wednesday. You ask again the next day, and it's still Wednesday. You don't correct her. Time isn't real here. It's only rhythm and repetition, and the quiet slide of trays across tile. You memorize the ceiling tiles, not just the number, but their patterns. You assign them names, characteristics. One has a crack that looks like a river. Another has a stain that resembles a bird. You watch them shift slightly with the air currents, as though breathing too. You start blinking out rhythms, short, long, until it becomes a kind of Morse code no one else understands. You think of it as music only you can hear. You hum quietly under your breath when the nurses aren't close. At first it's just to yourself, but later it becomes more structured. Melodies from memory, then ones you invent. You imagine instruments, violins, drums, horns. You hear them clearly in your head. You imagine standing up and conducting them. You see your fingers move in your mind. They trace the air. They move with grace. Your thoughts begin to fill the space the world used to occupy. The hospital shrinks, and your mind expands. You live inside the mirror now, in the places behind your own reflection, the ones only you can see. You visit your old dog at night and race your bicycle across dirt paths no one else remembers. You explore forests you never walked through in life, lakes you never swam in, languages you never spoke. Your thoughts become more vivid than your reality. You're 15 now. It's not something you feel so much as something you've been told. A nurse updates your chart and says it out loud, like she's surprised you've lasted this long. You want to say something clever, something that makes it sound like you've earned the year, but your voice cracks when you try. It's deeper now, not steady or strong, but different. Heavier, unfamiliar. When you speak, it sometimes surprises even you. Puberty inside the iron lung is not something anyone prepared you for. The doctors mention it clinically, like a phase to be noted and measured. Your body changes, but you can't see most of it. You can't touch it. You feel it instead. Tightness in your skin, aching in your bones, the strange surge of hormones you can't explain or direct. Your jawline shifts. Your shoulders, though you can't move them, feel broader somehow. Hair appears in places you can't reach. Your face itches more often, but you can't scratch it. One nurse brings it up, gently, awkwardly, when you wince at the pressure in your lower back. She says it's normal, that everyone your age is going through changes, that you're not alone. But her tone sounds more like apology than reassurance. Another nurse avoids the topic altogether and changes your sheets faster than usual when new stains appear. You feel embarrassed and then guilty for feeling embarrassed. Your body is changing without your permission, and there's nothing you can do about it. No guidebooks, no whispered advice behind gym lockers, just time and confusion, measured out by the pulse of the machine. The other patients change too. You watch their faces shift over the months. Some grow longer, leaner. Voices deepen. Girls become young women. Boys grow whiskers, or at least the suggestion of them. One boy, the one beside you with a quiet stare and a crooked smile, gets taller. You can't see most of it, but you hear the nurses say so. They measure him with string and talk about shoe sizes. You still remember what shoes felt like, though barely. He talks to you sometimes, this boy. His name is Joseph. He's been here almost as long as you have, maybe longer. He used to hum when the nurses changed his collar, and you started humming back. That was how you became friends, if that word still means anything here. He tells you stories, half-remembered movies, dreams he swears are real, things his older brother used to say. You don't talk much, but when you do, it matters. Words are expensive here. The nurses talk around you more than to you now. When they enter the room, they discuss your care, like your furniture. Vitals holding, pressure sore improved, appetite low. You speak when spoken to, but the conversations have grown thinner. The words chosen for efficiency rather than warmth. You've become an object of maintenance, quiet, cooperative, predictable. You stop asking for books, you stop asking for the mirror to be adjusted, you hum less, you listen more. The machines have become your music again. Inhale, pause, exhale, pause. Somewhere in that rhythm, you find enough space to think without hurting. Sometimes you imagine your thoughts as animals, pacing quietly inside the machine, waiting for something to change. One day, Joseph's machine is quieter than usual. You notice before the nurses do. His breathing pattern has changed, softer, shallower. When the nurse finally comes, she frowns and checks the monitor. She speaks to him in a voice meant to reassure, then leaves to fetch someone else. You ask if he's okay. He says, "I think so," but his eyes look unsure. The doctors run tests over the next week. They speak in hopeful tones, ones you've learned to mistrust. Words like response and recovery float through the air like perfume, sweet and temporary. Joseph looks nervous, then excited, then afraid. You don't ask questions, you already know the arc. The morning he leaves, the ward is unusually bright. They wheel him out with the machine still attached, powered by a temporary unit. He tries to turn his head to look back, but the collar holds him steady. As they reach the door, he calls out, "All right." It's loud enough that even the nurse flinches. You blink once, then again, as the door swings shut behind him. You wait for the letter, not because you believe in it, but because you want to. Days pass, then weeks, nothing arrives. You hear the nurses mention his name, less and less. Eventually, they stop entirely. His spot stays empty for a while, then is filled by someone younger, a girl who doesn't speak and keeps her eyes closed most of the time. You try to greet her once, she doesn't respond. You wonder where Joseph is now, whether he learned to breathe again, or walk, or run, whether he's outside in real weather, with real shoes and grass beneath his feet. You wonder if he still thinks about you, or if thinking about you would mean thinking about where he came from. Maybe it's easier not to. You think about what it would mean to leave. Not the fantasy version, but the actual logistics. The tubes, the machines, the room where you would go. You realise that no one has ever told you what happens after this. Not if you die, not if you live. There is no plan for what comes next. No brochure, no graduation, no future tense. You stay. The next time your parents visit, they bring your younger sister. She's taller now, noticeably so. The last time you saw her, she barely came up to your chin. Now she stands nearly eye to eye with your mother, all knees and elbows, wearing a dress that looks both too short and too grown up. Her voice has changed, not in pitch but in rhythm, She speaks more slowly, more carefully. She smiles when she sees you, but it's shy, uncertain, the way someone smiles at a photograph they aren't sure they still recognise. Your mother does most of the talking. She greets you with a small burst of energy, like she's rehearsed it, smoothing your hair, straightening the blanket, commenting on the new flower taped to your machine. "It's nice, isn't it?" she says, though she doesn't wait for your reply. Her eyes flick past yours too quickly. You can tell she's trying not to stare. Your sister hangs back a step, holding a paper bag that rustles faintly. You wonder what's in it, but she doesn't say, and no one offers it to you. Your father stands a little apart as always, near the foot of your machine, reading the chart like it might save him from having to speak. He makes a comment about how mature you look. Then he corrects himself. "Older?" he says. "That's all I mean." You smile politely. You've learned how to smile without moving much. It's more of a signal than an expression now. Something between acknowledgement and retreat. Your sister asks if you remember the dog. You do. She says he's still limping on the same leg, and that he sleeps on your bed most nights. She laughs when she says it, then quiets when no one else joins in. You try to picture her at home, her voice echoing in your old room, her feet on the floor you used to walk on. The image feels distant, unreal, like a story from another child's life. The visit lasts 12 minutes. You keep count, not because it matters, but because it gives shape to the time. Your mother says they'll come again soon. She always says it the same way, like it's a promise to herself, more than to you. The next visit is shorter. Your mother comes alone. She says your sister had a recital, that your father had a meeting, that things are just a little hectic at the moment. Her smile is thinner this time, her posture more rigid. She doesn't sit. She asks if you've been eating well, if the nurses are kind, if the machines are quieter than they used to be. You answer where you can. She nods like she's marking something off a list. She leaves a book on the tray, one you can't read, and she doesn't offer to read aloud. After she leaves, the nurse tucks the blanket more tightly around your legs and says, "It's nice she still comes." You nod again, though this time the motion is almost imperceptible. You feel the compliment shrink inside your chest like something too cold to hold. Then another long silence. Time becomes shapeless again. You stop tracking visits by calendar dates and instead measure them by ward changes, a new nurse, a new patient, the removal of a machine that used to hum near your head. You wait for the knock at the door that never comes. You ask once after what might have been 2 months whether they've called. The nurse checks the chart and says, "Not recently." She says it gently, but without apology. Eventually, your mother returns. She brings new socks, still folded in their packaging. She places them beside the tray like an offering. She says she saw them on sale and thought of you. She doesn't ask if you need them. You don't remind her that you haven't worn socks in nearly 5 years. She talks about your sister, her music classes, her science grades, how she's thinking of going to college somewhere far. You try to sound excited, but the words catch in your throat. You nod instead. Your mother mentions how grown up she's gotten, how quickly the years pass. You want to ask what year it is, but decide against it. Some things feel better left vague. That visit lasts 9 minutes. She promises to write. She places her hand briefly on your head before leaving, fingers barely grazing your hair. The letter comes 2 weeks later. It's short, typed, signed Mom. It mentions the weather, the dog, a memory you don't recall, something about a beach trip you're not sure ever happened. The ink smudges at the end. You wonder if she cried while writing it, or just leaned on the page too hard. After that, nothing for a while. The nurse says your father took a new job. She doesn't say where. She tells you as if you already know. You ask when they'll be back. She offers a thin smile and adjusts the tubing near your collar. You wait. Each day you watch the door, not intently, but as a habit. You watch how it opens for other families, how children in other machines are visited by siblings who bring drawings and books. by parents who fuss with pillows and touch foreheads gently. You listen to conversations from the next bed over, the sound of stories being read aloud, of laughter that doesn't quite echo in the tiled room. The space around your machine becomes quieter. Your name is spoken less often. The nurses, when they talk to you, keep their words short. They ask if you're comfortable, if you're warm enough, if you'd like more broth. No one asks who's coming to visit. That question has expired. You tell yourself they're busy, that they're trying, that it's not easy to see you like this. You remind yourself of holidays and birthdays and blankets that smelled like home. You think about your sister's recital, though you've never heard her play. You imagine the applause, the bow, the light on her face. You try to believe she still thinks of you when she closes her music case. Eventually, you stop asking. Not because you don't want them to come, but because you know the answer won't change. They are not coming. Not tomorrow, not next week, not after the weather improves. You understand now that some absences become routine, that silence can harden into structure. You still watch the ward door, but not with expectation. Just habit, just the memory of what it used to mean. The summer comes quietly that year, not that you experience it directly. You only know it's summer because the nurses start wearing shorter sleeves and a small fan appears near the window at the far end of the ward. They talk about the heat outside, about how the pavement burns through shoes, how the air sticks to skin. One complains about the humidity in her apartment, how it makes her curtains cling to the walls. You imagine curtains. You try to remember the way heat felt on your arms. But it's a concept now, not a sensation. Most of your body has forgotten the vocabulary of weather. One afternoon the sky begins to darken. You notice it first as a shift in tone on the wall, the usual grey light slipping into something bruised and heavy. The fan stops oscillating. The air thickens. Nurses glance toward the window more often. One mutters something about the forecast, then says she hopes it won't be like last time. You don't ask what she means. You already know you don't want to hear it. The storm arrives fast. The wind builds behind the walls, pressing against the windows in rhythmic pulses. Rain lashes the glass in waves. Thunder cracks close, the kind that makes the floor seem to vibrate, even under your machine. A fluorescent light flickers overhead. You keep your eyes on the ceiling, counting the seconds between flashes and rumbles, pretending it's just another kind of music. Then suddenly everything stops. Not the storm, that continues, but the ward. The lights go dark. The machines fall silent. And then your chest does too. There is no transition, no warning. One moment you're breathing, or being breathed, and the next, nothing. It is not a feeling of suffocation, not right away. It is something more foreign. A stillness so absolute that your brain doesn't know how to interpret it. For a heartbeat or two, it almost feels like peace. Then the instinct returns. You need air. You cannot get it. You try to scream, but your throat contracts without sound. Your mouth opens. Nothing enters. Your ribs stay frozen. Your mind panics faster than your body. You think of the power cord at the base of the machine. You think of the humming that should be there but isn't. You think of how long 10 seconds can last. Nurses scramble. You hear the shuffle of shoes, the clatter of trays knocked over, the raised voices trying to stay calm. A flashlight flicks on. You see it cross the far wall in a sweeping arc. You hear another machine sputter, then silence again. Someone says, "I've got this one." Another shouts, "Where's the crank?" Your lungs begin to burn, your eyes blur. You feel pressure in your chest that doesn't belong to breath. Then, finally, motion. The vacuum returns with a slow dragging rhythm, and your chest inflates, then collapses. It's too fast, then too slow. The timing is wrong. The balance is off. But it's air. You take it. You take it again. They've attached a manual pump to the side of your iron lung. A nurse is operating it by hand, using a crank connected to a belt that controls the pressure inside the chamber. You hear it groan, with every turn. Your breathing is uneven. The rhythm skips. Sometimes the inhale is too shallow. Sometimes the exhale is delayed. But you're alive. Barely. It takes several minutes before the emergency power kicks in. The lights don't return all at once. They flicker back in patches, like a reluctant sunrise. The machine's grown back to life, one by one. Your iron lung steadies. The vacuum evens out. You inhale properly for the first time in minutes. Someone touches your forehead and says, "You're okay, you're okay." You're not sure if they believe it. You don't. Later, they tell you the generator failed to start immediately. Something about a relay, a timing mechanism, nothing you understand. They promise it's fixed now, that it won't happen again. They say the same thing to the family of the boy 3 machines down, whose backup didn't engage in time. He didn't die, but he came close. His mother doesn't stop crying for the rest of the day. You listen to her breath hitch across the ward. You don't sleep that night, or the next, even after the storm passes and the skies return to their flat, grey calm. You lie awake, staring at the ceiling, listening for the hum of the machine. Every slight change in tone sets your nerves on edge. Every flicker of light feels like a warning. You count the seconds between each breath, not because you need to, the machine handles that, but because you can't stop. The nurses try to comfort you. One brings a small battery-powered radio and leaves it on your tray. White noise helps, she says. It doesn't. The sound only reminds you how fragile noise is, how easily it's replaced by silence. Another offers a blanket fresh from the dryer. It helps for a moment, the weight, the warmth, but the feeling fades. You ask her not to turn the lights all the way off at night. She says she understands. Days pass. The staff resume their routines. The conversations return to normal volume. They joke again, read letters aloud to other patients, talk about their weekends. No one mentions the storm. No one says how close it came. You overhear a nurse tell a new hire that power failures are rare, that there's nothing to worry about. She says the machines are reliable. You wonder if she was here that day. The boy who almost didn't make it gets moved to a different facility. You hear them talk about specialised care closer to home. His machine is wheeled out in the early morning, before most of the others are awake. You watch through the mirror. His bed sits empty for 2 days. Then someone new arrives, younger, quieter. The cycle continues. You don't talk about it. Not to the nurses, not to the mirror, not even in your thoughts. But you feel it. You feel it every time the lights flicker, even for a second. You feel it when someone plugs in a fan too close to the outlet your machine shares. You feel it in your spine when you hear thunder in the distance, and in the pit of your stomach when the power goes out in another wing of the hospital and the lights dim slightly in your own. Years pass. You turn 20 quietly. No one says it out loud until 3 days after the fact, when a nurse with a new haircut notices the date on your chart and offers an awkward smile. "Happy belated," she says, already adjusting the collar at your neck. She asks if you'd like a birthday card. You do not respond. She takes that as a no, but not an unkind one. The idea of being 20 doesn't feel real. There's no marker for it. No ceremony, no rite of passage, no driver's license, no college application, no first job, no first apartment, no first anything. Just the same metal machine, the same ceiling tiles, the same rhythm of in and out, in and out. You don't feel older. You just feel further away. Your body has become something distant, a husk you're loosely tethered to. You remember that it exists only when it demands attention. Your skin breaks down in places where the padding isn't replaced often enough, or when someone forgets to shift you on schedule. The sores begin as red patches, then open into wounds. Some of them heal, others turn soft around the edges and leak. You can't see them, but you know they're there by the way the nurses talk around them. One infection spreads deeper than expected. You hear the word abscess and then antibiotics. The nurse who usually tends to you is replaced for a few days by someone unfamiliar. and your chart travels between hands like an object of mild concern. When the doctor arrives, he doesn't make eye contact. He shines a flashlight behind your ear and says, "We're monitoring it." You never hear the outcome, but the wound begins to itch again, which you take as a sign of healing. Your limbs are mostly dead weight now. You can't feel them, not really. Just a low awareness of pressure, of something being there but not connected to you. They are soft in ways that don't feel natural. You picture them as overcooked noodles under a blanket. One of the orderlies mutters something about muscle atrophy when helping shift your body. He doesn't think you can hear him. You can. You ask, occasionally, for things that might wake your senses. A different kind of lotion, a cloth warmed more thoroughly, a story read from a real book instead of the standard newspaper clippings they rotate through the ward, a radio with batteries that last more than an hour, a new scent, a new texture, something, anything. The nurses try sometimes. Most days they forget. One of them paints your machine, not because it needs it, but because there's a new head nurse with a fondness for neatness. The outside is sanded down, repainted the same dull beige it was probably meant to be years ago. They tape paper over your head while they work. You breathe through the filter and listen to the rasp of the paintbrush, the occasional clatter of tools. When it's done, the nurse pulls the paper away and says, "Good as new." You do not say anything. The machine looks slightly cleaner, shinier even, but you do not. No one tends to your appearance unless there's a medical reason. Your hair is cut shorter now, not styled, just trimmed with shears every few months. Your fingernails are clipped flat. Your face is wiped down with a wet cloth, but no one applies lotion unless your skin cracks. You are kept intact, but not cared for. Your reflection in the mirror is dimmer than it used to be, not because of light, but because of familiarity. You no longer look at your face and feel it belongs to you. It's just the image that floats above the machine. It blinks, it listens. It doesn't age, at least not visibly. You've passed the threshold where birthdays feel like change. They're just numbers now. Tally marks, another rotation of time in a space where nothing moves. One of the nurses tries to be kind. She brings you a bottle of lotion with a lavender label and applies it slowly, carefully, explaining the scent as she goes. You thank her, not aloud, but with your eyes. She smiles, and for a moment you feel human. Then her shift ends, and the next nurse forgets the bottle even exists. The infections come and go. The chart grows thicker. Someone remarks that your vitals are remarkably stable for someone in your condition. You're not sure what that means anymore. Stable sounds like another word for paused, or stored, or forgotten in a functioning container. You imagine yourself as a specimen in a lab, preserved, catalogued, occasionally checked on, but otherwise still. You dream more often now. Not the vivid kind with movement and colour, but slow dreams, ambient scenes that feel more like memory than imagination. A road, a park bench, the shadow of your legs swinging over the edge of a dock. You wake with a sharp awareness that something is missing, but it fades by breakfast. The machine hums. The nurse arrives. The tray is placed near your head. You try to count how long it's been since you felt your own feet. You try to remember what walking felt like, not just the mechanics, but the small things. The tap of your heel on tile, the way your toes gripped inside your shoes, the tingle after a leg fell asleep. You try to summon even the faintest trace of that physical memory. But you realise, slowly and without drama, that you've forgotten what your legs felt like. One day, you're told that someone will be coming to interview you. A nurse comes in at the end of her shift and mentions it casually, almost as an afterthought. Someone from the local paper will come tomorrow. Human interest piece, she says, smoothing your collar without looking at you. The hospital wants to highlight the long-term cases. A little press never hurts. You know what she means by long-term. You've been here longer than anyone else in this part of the building. The others come and go, a slow procession of temporary crises, Short-term recoveries, quiet departures. You are the constant, the patient who never leaves. The story they bring up in meetings when someone asks how well the machines are maintained. You've become part of the hospital's reputation, an internal legend, stable, manageable, consistent. That night, they clean around your machine more thoroughly than usual. A different nurse clips a clean towel across the tray beside you, tucks in the corners of your blanket, and uses a fine comb to smooth the top of your hair. She doesn't ask if you want this. She simply says, "We want you looking sharp for the paper." Then she wipes down the outer shell of the iron lung with alcohol and steps back to admire her work. You smell like antiseptic for the rest of the night. The next morning, someone from administration arrives. She's wearing heels and a blouse that's too formal for the ward. She speaks to the nurse in a tone too cheerful for the setting. You are referred to as our gentleman in row C, and then as the centerpiece. You hear them discuss lighting, camera angles, power cords. You are not asked anything directly. You are present, but not consulted. When the journalist arrives, he's younger than you expect, maybe mid-30s with a notepad tucked under one arm and a camera slung around his neck. He introduces himself, but his voice is already turned slightly outward, as if narrating for someone else. He stands at the foot of your machine and looks at you like an exhibit. "Incredible," he says, then shakes his head. "Absolutely incredible." He asks the nurse a few questions first. She answers with practiced efficiency. When he finally turns back to you, he crouches slightly, so you're more level, and asks how long you've been here. You tell him, though your voice cracks on the ear. He doesn't seem to notice. He asks what your favourite book is. You try to remember. You say the first title that comes to mind. He writes it down before you finish the sentence. Then he asks if you ever gave up hope. You don't answer right away. You weren't expecting the question, though you should have. You search your reflection in the mirror for something to say. Eventually, you settle on a lie so gentle it feels like silence. "You get used to things," you say. He nods as if that's profound. You don't correct him. The camera flashes near your face. You weren't ready for the light. You blink, slow and automatic, and try to keep your features neutral. The photographer asks the nurse to adjust your collar again. She does so quickly, brushing your shoulder, as if straightening a child's coat. Then she steps back and nods. "He's always so composed," she says. The journalist smiles like he's discovered something rare. He asks a few more questions, most of which you answer out of habit. When you pause too long, he fills the space with guesses and writes them down anyway. He asks what kept you going, and you say something about your family, though you haven't heard from them in over a year. He asks if you ever dream of walking again, and you say you do, though your dreams are mostly silent now. He thanks you as if you've given him something. Then he stands, gives your blanket a tug to neaten the edges, and moves on to the next patient. After they leave, the ward feels louder. The machines hiss a little more harshly. The overhead lights seem more artificial. A nurse comes by to remove the towel from your tray. She tells you it all went well. "You represented us beautifully," she says. You don't know what that means. You didn't know you were representing anything. A week later, the article arrives. It's printed on cheap paper, folded twice, and left on your tray with the breakfast you don't touch. The headline calls you an iron lung survivor, which feels like a contradiction. There's a photograph, your face slightly overexposed, caught mid-blink. The caption beneath it calls you inspiring. It says you've defied the odds and overcome unimaginable adversity. The article gets your age wrong by 2 years. It claims you enjoy listening to jazz, though you haven't heard jazz in over a decade. It says your sister visits monthly. She doesn't. It describes you as a symbol of hope. The hospital is quoted directly. A spokesperson says you're an extraordinary example of long-term resilience in the face of medical challenges. They talk about advancements in care, about the importance of institutional support, about the community of healing. Your name is in bold twice, your first name only. The nurses tape the article to the bulletin board outside the ward. Visitors glance at it when they walk by. You watch their faces through the mirror, how they pause, read, and keep walking. No one looks at you afterward. The article is not meant for you. It's meant for everyone else. That afternoon, the head nurse pats your shoulder and tells you the story was a success. "You're a bit of a celebrity," she says. You nod or try to. You think about the word celebrity and how strange it sounds in this place. This long corridor of humming machines and forgotten names. You are praised by people who will never see you again. The next day, the bulletin board is updated with a flyer about flu season. Your article is moved to the side, then removed entirely. You never see where it goes. A new nurse asks if you'd like a copy. You shake your head. She says, "Okay," and throws it in the trash. The tray is wiped clean. The blanket is changed. The routine returns. Later, alone again with your reflection, you try to feel something. Gratitude, bitterness, pride, anger. Nothing lands. Your emotions have become like your limbs. Distant, abstract, occasionally twitching, but not reliable. You think about screaming, just once, loud and raw and real. You picture the noise ripping through your throat, loud enough to shatter the mirrors. You imagine the nurses running in, the doctors alarmed, the visitors horrified. You picture your voice filling the space, uncontrollable and alive. But the machine breathes in. You breathe out, and there's no space for rage. After the article, things return to normal, or rather, what passes for normal now. The routine settles back into place, with the quiet efficiency of something mechanical. Then one morning, the head nurse arrives at your bedside, earlier than usual. Her clipboard is thicker than normal, her tone slightly too gentle. She says the hospital needs to make space for incoming acute cases. It's said kindly, but clearly. The words have been practiced. You understand the shape of them before she's finished speaking. They tell you the new facility is quieter, better suited for your long-term needs. They use phrases like continuity of care and resource reallocation. You don't ask questions. You've learned that most explanations are walls painted to look like doors. The transfer happens the next day. An ambulance is scheduled for mid-morning. The orderlies who arrive are unfamiliar, younger, dressed in matching jackets, their energy too high for this hallway. They talk to each other more than to you. One of them whistles while checking the power cord on your machine. The other glances at your chart and says, "He's the iron lung case, right?" You are not referred to by name. They attach a backup unit to the lung, a wheezing, temperamental thing that sounds too old to trust, and wheel you out of the ward like a package. No nurse walks beside you. A few glance up as you pass, but no one says goodbye. You've outlasted too many of them for ceremony. You look at the ceiling one last time, count the stains you memorized years ago, and close your eyes when the fluorescent lights give way to elevator hum. The ambulance ride is not long, but the vibration unsettles you. The machine thuds against the restraints with each pothole. Your breathing rhythm falters slightly, catching in odd places, then smoothing out again. You focus on the sound of the driver's voice through the front window. He's talking about a game, a score, something ordinary. It doesn't matter. The new facility is smaller, tucked between other buildings on a street you can't see. You catch a glimpse of faded brick as you're unloaded, more like a school than a hospital. The entryway smells faintly of bleach and something older, more chemical. You are wheeled through 2 sets of double doors, then down a narrow hallway where the lights buzz louder than the ones you remember. The nurse who meets you is grey-haired, polite, and noticeably out of breath. The room you're assigned to has no windows, just a high panel of frosted glass that doesn't let in light, only a sense of time passing. The walls are pale green, the corners darker with age. Your machine is plugged into an outlet near the floor, and for a moment, the room goes silent while the backup is removed. Then the lung kicks in again, slightly louder than before. The air feels heavier, dustier. The ceiling is low. There's a small leak in one of the overhead pipes. Just a slow, irregular drip that echoes faintly when it hits the linoleum floor. They place a cloth under it, which becomes a towel, which becomes a bucket. You watch it fill slowly, day after day. The stain around the pipe grows darker. There are fewer staff here. The nurses are older, their steps slower, their eyes dulled by years of repetition. They're kind, mostly, but tired. They don't speak to you the way the younger ones did. No stories about their weekends, no gentle teasing. They do their jobs with care, but without warmth. When they touch you, it is with practiced hands and neutral expressions. The schedule is the same, but thinner. Medications come on time, but meals are late. Bathing is less frequent. 1 week, they forget your hair entirely. And when it's finally washed, it takes 2 shifts to comb through the knots. The nurse apologizes, but her voice is too flat to carry meaning. You nod or try to. You've stopped keeping track of the days. Your machine is older now too. The paint is chipped near the edges, the dials looser than they should be. You hear the maintenance man, a short, muttering man with stained hands, tell someone in the hallway that spare parts are getting hard to find. They don't make them anymore, he says, not quietly enough. We'll have to get creative. You don't ask what that means. You don't want to know. One afternoon, the vacuum falters briefly. Not a failure, just a hesitation, a missed beat. Your chest tightens in response, your body remembering what it learned during the blackout years ago. A nurse comes quickly, taps the side of the casing, and says, "It does that sometimes." You do not sleep that night. The other patients here are older than the ones you remember. Most of them are silent. A few whisper to themselves in soft, repetitive loops. Their machines are varied, some more modern, some jury-rigged with parts you don't recognise. There are no family visits, at least not while you're awake. The hallway is quiet most of the time, except for the cartwheels and the occasional rattle of trays. You name the stains on the ceiling. There's one shaped like a boot, one like a fish, one that looks vaguely like the outline of your state. You count the tiles again. Though you've done it before, this room has fewer than the last. You assign names to the drips in the pipe. Try to measure time by the spacing between each fall. It doesn't help. The rhythm never settles into something useful. Your mirror is smaller now, just a compact square clipped near your headrest. You can't see much in it anymore. Just part of your face and the pale green wall behind you. You stop using it after a while. There's nothing left to monitor. Your reflection has become just another shape in the room, as unmoving as the stains in the ceiling and the bucket beneath the pipe. The room is always the same temperature, but you still feel cold sometimes. The nurses added another blanket. They do not ask if you're comfortable. That question has been replaced with routine. You are checked, adjusted, documented. Your vitals are noted, your meals recorded. No one asks what you need. You're not sure you'd have an answer if they did. You understand, finally, what this place is. Not a hospital, not a ward, not a home. It is a shelf. A carefully maintained shelf where people are placed when there is no more story to tell. Decades pass. You're 54, or maybe 55. You're not sure anymore. Someone brought a card last month with a cartoon cake on it, but the number was smudged, and the nurse wasn't certain it matched your file. The calendar on the far wall has a different year circled every few weeks, and no one seems bothered when it's wrong. You gave up asking. By now most of the others are gone. Some left the iron lungs decades ago, slowly relearning to breathe through rehab or surgery. Their muscles stubborn, but still obedient. Others simply stopped breathing, with or without warning. Some were wheeled or out under a sheet before the sun came up, and some vanished during shift change, with only the absence of their rhythmic thumping to mark their departure. One by one, their names faded from clipboards and charts, their machines wheeled away for parts, or pushed into storage and forgotten. You are the only one still here, the last one in the row, the last one in the room. The staff has changed too. The first nurse you remember retired 20 years ago. The one who used to hum while washing your hair died of cancer before you turned 40. The doctor who tried the diaphragm pacing experiment hasn't been spoken of in at least a decade. Even the second generation, the ones who replaced the originals, have begun to disappear. The nurses now are slow-moving, soft-spoken and unfamiliar. They mispronounce your name sometimes. They ask if this is your first time in the lung, and then glance awkwardly at your chart when they realise it's not. You don't correct them. There's no point. The machine, on the other hand, endures. Its colour has changed over the years from sterile hospital cream to chipped beige, then back to cream again after someone tried a restoration project that never quite finished. The crank handle is newer. The rubber seal has been replaced so many times it no longer creaks when they fasten it. The vacuum pump hums with the same rhythm it always has. It has never failed completely, though it sputters in the winter and drones unevenly when the heat kicks in. You suspect someone tried to requisition a newer model years ago, but when none could be found, they just kept fixing this one. It was never meant to last a lifetime, but it has. Your skin does not fare as well. Even with the rotation pads, even with the medicated ointments and plastic sheets, the pressure of decades against unfeeling limbs takes its toll. Your hips ache, though the nerves in your lower spine have long since dulled. A slow sore beneath your right shoulder never fully heals. A nurse dabs it gently with a cotton swab, while murmuring that it looks better than last week, though you both know it isn't. Infection is always a threat. You hear the words sepsis risk once during a night shift, and wonder if anyone will remember to check for fever. Sometimes you ask for music, sometimes they bring it, or old jazz, soft gospel, scratchy records of war-era pop, the kind your mother used to hum under her breath while folding laundry. You drift in and out of memory with those notes, half dreaming of sunlight and linoleum and the faint smell of burnt toast. Other days, the request is forgotten or the player is broken. On those days, the silence settles heavier than usual. Your arms have withered, though they were never strong to begin with. The left hand curls in on itself now, fingers too stiff to uncurl without assistance. You vaguely recall signing your name once. A nurse had to guide your hand with hers, and the result looked like a child's crayon drawing. That was 10 years ago. Or 20. The nurse is gone. The paper is gone. But you remember the effort, the shame of failing at something so basic. The ache of trying to remember what your signature used to look like. Your teeth are in better shape than they should be. Mostly thanks to hygienists who care more than they have to. One of them sings while she works. Not to you, but not to you either. You've come to treasure that. The intimacy of voice, the luxury of being spoken to instead of over. She once brought you a postcard from her vacation to Arizona. You asked if she would send another one next year. She said yes, she did not. Your mind remains sharp, though it doesn't always want to. There are mornings when you forget what day it is or what month. A nurse once asked you the name of the current president, and you gave her 3 options. She laughed, but not unkindly. You have lost the ability to care about correctness. You measure your days now by ceiling tiles and the pitch of fluorescent hum. You know when the nurse's shift is ending by the way she stands, 1 foot angled slightly toward the exit. You can tell the difference between a janitor's mop and a doctor's shoes by the sound they make near your machine. These are your senses now. These are the things that matter. Sometimes a new staff member asks how long you've been here. You don't answer. Not out of rudeness, but because it feels too enormous to say aloud. More years than they've worked in medicine. More years than some of them have been alive. You once tried to calculate the total number of hours spent breathing through the machine's rhythm, but you lost count before reaching middle age. Now, you measure life in pulses of suction, in the steady rise and fall of your chest, in the way the machine has become a metronome for your thoughts. They used to call you brave. Now they call you remarkable. Occasionally, they use the word miracle. which makes you want to laugh if only you still could. There is nothing miraculous about survival without motion. It is neither holy nor heroic. It is maintenance, routine, habit. You exist because the machine has not yet failed, and because the system still finds it easier to keep you alive than to decide what it means if you were gone. You hear once through a nurse's idle chatter that children don't catch polio anymore, that a vaccine changed everything. You try to picture a world without the iron lungs. You try to feel something about it, but it's been too long. The grief doesn't reach you, just the hum of the machine. No one comes to visit anymore, not for a long time. You don't blame them. You're not even sure who's left to remember. Your sister wrote once, a real letter, not a holiday card, and it arrived with smudged ink and a photo of her grandchildren. You couldn't hold it, of course, but a nurse clipped it near your mirror. You stared at it for a month before asking her to take it down. It made the walls feel smaller. It made you ache in places you didn't know could still ache. Your reflection has changed. The mirror has been replaced twice, and now it hangs at a slightly awkward angle that distorts your face if you look too long. You try not to. Not out of fear, but because the person staring back feels less like you and more like a shadow someone forgot to erase. Your hair is mostly gone. Your cheeks have hollowed. The eyes remain. That is the only part you still recognize. The machine breathes. You do not. And in this strange symbiosis, this metal womb turned casket, turned life support, turned home, you remain alive, still, but slowly, very slowly, fading. It begins with something small, a flutter maybe, an unfamiliar tremor in the background noise that has defined your existence for more than 4 decades. You can't tell if it's real at first, after so many years of trusting the rhythm, of using it as your clock, your lullaby, your constant, your anchor. It's hard to imagine that sound faltering, but it does. The machine groans, not loudly, but wrong. The suction pauses just slightly longer than it should before pulling again. Then it pushes unevenly. Your chest rises too far. The next breath barely comes. You feel it not in your lungs, but in your stomach, in the hollow places inside you where instinct still lives. That primal tug that says something is broken, something is off. You wait, for help, for someone, for anything. A nurse should have come already. You know the timing by heart. The rounds should have passed 2 minutes ago. Your peripheral vision tells you nothing. No shadows, no shift in light beneath the door, just stillness. The hum stutters again. You try to call out, but the sound barely escapes your throat. You never developed much volume over the years. Your voice eroded like everything else. You wheeze, then cough. The machine doesn't respond. The mirror shows your face tinged with something new. Panic. You don't like the expression. It doesn't belong to the person you've become, but it's there, undeniable. Your jaw trembles. You try to relax. Panicking will only make it worse. You've been through false alarms before. Blackouts, sputters, power surges. The machine always came back. Always. You count seconds. It's the only thing you can do. 7, 8, 9. Then it pulls again, shallow and weak. You're still breathing technically, but it's not enough. Your chest feels heavier with each attempt. Air thins around your face. You imagine the vacuum failing altogether. Your lungs forgetting how to do this. Your diaphragm collapsing in like crumpled paper. You know exactly what that would feel like. You remember the test they ran, the day they removed you for 10 seconds to assess your independent breathing. You remember the drowning. This is slower. A minute passes. You try not to cry, but your eyes burn. Not from sadness, not even from fear anymore, but from the sting of pressure that never fully equalizes. Your vision blurs, though you're not sure if that's tears or something else. The room seems dimmer, but it's not the lights. It's you. No one comes. The nurse is probably at lunch. You remember the schedule. She takes her break during the 3rd hour of afternoon shift. That's now. There's a backup pump. You know that too. but someone has to start it manually. It's tucked behind the curtain near the storage closet. She'll return soon, you tell yourself. She always does. The next breath doesn't come. You try to count again, but your thoughts are scattering. Your body is betraying itself quietly, without drama. There is no violent spasm, no gasp, just stillness expanding where breath should be. A strange, unmoored float begins behind your eyes. Your fingers tingle faintly, though they haven't moved in years. Your vision tunnels. You think of your mother. Not the last version, the one with tired eyes and silent visits, but the one from before. The one who brushed your hair back when you were 5 and sang lullabies off-key. You remember her hands, always warm. You picture her standing beside you now, though she isn't. Hasn't been for years. You don't blame her. You just miss her. Your throat tightens. It's not emotion, it's the carbon dioxide building, your body screaming for what it can't get. Your muscles contract against the absence. You can't draw air, you can't release it. It hurts, but not sharply. It's slow, thick, a suffocating molasses settling into your chest. You hear a footstep, just one, then silence again. The machine tries one last push, then whines low and tired. A final exhale, then nothing. You wait for the next breath. It doesn't come. You wait a little longer. Your mind does not panic this time. It slows like the rest of you. A fog uncoils through your thoughts, soft and heavy. You blink. Once, maybe twice, it's hard to say. Your heart keeps going longer than you expected. You feel its stubborn rhythm in your throat, your ears, but it's weakening. You can sense that. A flickering candle caught in its own smoke. You think of the ceiling tiles, the ones you memorized, counted, renamed. You try to focus on them now. They look the same. They always have. You remember the song the hygienist used to hum. You hear it again, faint and imagined. You cling to it. It feels like comfort. Then the music fades. Your chest does not rise again. The nurse finds you 11 minutes later. She was eating soup, she tells someone quietly. She thought she heard a noise but assumed it was just the ventilator settling. She moves quickly now, but there is no need, you're gone. The machine is silent. There is a brief effort to confirm, pulse check, flashlight, notes. Then a chart is updated. The time of death is written down in pen. Your name is spelled correctly, but no one says it aloud. There is no ceremony, no announcement, just the quiet removal of your file from the wall hook. A screen is drawn across your mirror. The backup pump is never started. By the next morning, another bed is brought in. Not an iron lung, a rolling cot for a new patient. A different kind of illness, a different kind of silence. Your machine is unplugged. A red tag is tied to the lever. It waits, as it always has, for someone to decide what to do with it next. And that brings us to the end of tonight's story. Not of triumph, but of quiet survival stretched so long it blurred into erasure. A child caught in the machinery of illness and institution, preserved by metal but forgotten by time. If you enjoyed this story, feel free to like, subscribe, or leave a comment with a corner of the past you'd like to see explored next. If you'd like early access to more of these quiet descents into forgotten history, ad-free audio of the episodes, or just want to support the show, there's a link to the Patreon in the description. If you're listening on a podcast app, a rating or review helps more people find their way to these stories. And special thanks to the supporters who make this show possible, including our chroniclers, Andrew S. and Rich Davis. Sleep well.